Yeah, we are on. Yeah. I've sent you a message. I think you've got that also, no?
I have.
Towards the end. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Malti, I'm glad you've joined early.
You're watching from there?
Yeah. I'm here. I'll be
Okay,
here.
okay. Yeah. Jankiram will be doing the thing, or you're going to do today, Sajni?
No, Janaki.
Okay,
I told
fine,
Dr.
fine.
Hiti that he called.
Okay, dear. Okay. Janki. Anyway, nice to see you. I mean, not see you because I can't see you. Huh? She's watching. She's not joining.
Just mute yourself now, Malti.
Yeah, everybody.
We have 21 participants, so at 7 we can start.
Yes, madam.
Ambika Verma, have you been able to join? Ambika Verma, you said you couldn't get on the program. Have you managed to join, dear?
Yes, thanks,
Okay.
Malti. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, I can see this.
Good evening. I welcome Dr. Hegde and all the participants for this Fundamentals of Vedanta fourth session. We will start in a couple of minutes.
Mr. Janaki Ram. Mr.
Yes,
Janaki
sir.
Ram or Sajini, who will be initiating this meeting?
Mr. Janaki Ram is initiating, Doctor, and
Okay, all right.
We'll start it in a minute. Welcome, everyone, and we will be starting this in another 2 minutes.
Yeah, we will start exactly at 7 o'clock.
Yes, Mr. Janaki Ram, it's 7. I'd like you to start.
Good evening. Thank Dr. Timma Pegde and his team of faculty for organizing this program. And on behalf of School of Ancient Wisdom, I just want to have a recap that this is the fourth session. In the first session, there was an introduction to Vedanta. Second session was on Karma Yoga. Third session was on Upasana Yoga. And this is the fourth session on Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. And I'm sure most of the participants are well aware that Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are elaborated in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 to chapter 18. We are all very eagerly waiting for the insight into details because these two are considered to be like two wings of the bird for any sadhaka. So more we will, I'm sure, hear from Dr. Timma Pegde and the main speaker, Dr. Anupama. So now I hand over to Dr. Timma Pegde to take over the proceedings. Thank you, sir.
Sir, could you please unmute yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Janaki Ram. Thank you, Sajani, for this wonderful opportunity of this interaction between Param Vedanta and the School of Ancient Wisdom. As planned, we are systematically going through various topics dealing with the introduction to Vedanta. And as Janaki Ram has already said, we have had topics on scriptures, and then we had the various sadhanas. Sadhanas are the skills which help us to obtain the sadhyam. So the first sadhana we discussed was Karma Yoga by Dr. Sundar. The second sadhana we discussed first was by Ullas. The second sadhana was on Upasana Yoga. And the third sadhana we are talking today will be about Nyana Yoga and Bhakti. It will be a combination of both these two sadhanas. There was also another request that we begin with a certain prayer. Each class we will also have a prayer. And in addition to just chanting that prayer, we will also bring about the deeper meaning of the prayer. The prayer selected for today's class is a very popular prayer which is usually chanted during Arati time. The prayer called Na Tatra Suryo Bhati Na Chandra Tarakam, which is there in many Upanishads. Some of our senior students have now been playing the role of teachers, and the teacher today will be Dr. Anupama. Dr. Anupama is a graduate from Bangalore Medical College, and then she did a post-graduation in anesthesiology at KMC Manipal. After that, she has set up her practice in Bangalore. She has a hospital of her own in Madiwala, leading a very busy practice. In addition to an extremely busy practice, she has had a deep interest into Vedanta and has been part of our Vedanta classes for the last 10 years. Dr. Anupama, please come over and take this class. The topics will be the mantra, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Over to you.
Next. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Starting with the mantra, Na Tatra Suryo Bhati Na Chandra Tarakam Nema Vidyuto Bhanti Kuto Ayam Agnihi Tam Eva Bhantam Anubhati Sarvam Tasya Bhasa Sarvam Idam Vibhati. This is a profound mantra mentioned both in Kathopanishad and Mundaka Upanishad. In Kathopanishad, Nachiketa asks Yamadharmaraja, why do wise people refer to Brahmananda as etad iti, that is, not remote, but intimately available? How do I accomplish that Brahmananda? Katam nu tat vijaniyam. How can I transform that paroksha jnanam into aparoksha jnanam? He asks, Kim ubhati? How can this Brahmananda be experienced? Yamadharmaraja answers these questions with this mantra. The essence of his reply, that is, the essence of this mantra is, Brahmananda is never the object of experience. It is the essential nature of the experiencer, the Chaitanyam, the consciousness. Every experience is limited in time, space, and by various conditions. They are all just Vishayanandas. As consciousness never comes and goes, Brahmananda is Ananta or limitless. The uniqueness of Vedanta is, in every experience we are trained to shift our attention from the object of experience to the subject, the experiencer. This object of experience, however great or divine, is just mithya, a lesser order of reality. Ultimately, it is I, the witness consciousness Atma, who lends existence to not just this entire universe, but even to Saguna Ishvara. The brilliance of Lord Ganesh is often compared to Koti Suryas, Surya Koti Samaprabham. Vedanta says that it is the light of my consciousness that illumines even this brilliance. When is Brahmananda available? The answer is Prati Bodha Viditam Matam. Brahman is the adhishtanam or substratum of every experience. It is a prameyam, that is, not an object of any instrument of knowledge. It illumines, that is, makes known everything despite not being physically present. For example, in every photograph, the existence of the camera is never questioned. Therefore, Brahman is Swayam Prakashatvam, meaning self-evident. Atma is often referred to as light because it illuminates Anatma. Illumination in Vedanta refers to that in whose presence an unknown object is made known. The illuminator is therefore called light or Deva. Every sense organ is called Deva or light because it illuminates the objects around us. It is ultimately the light of my consciousness that illumines my mind and sense organs. Brahman is therefore called Jyotishyam Jyoti or Deva Deva. It is the ultimate illuminator or light of all lights. Tam eva bhantam sarvam anubhati. That means Brahman alone illumines, directly or indirectly through various media. Tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. That means Vivida antakarana indriya dvara, Vivida pramana dvara, Atma eva vibhati. Through various minds, sense organs, and instruments of knowledge, Atma alone illumines. Brahman, therefore, cannot and need not be illumined. Suryana bhati, the sun cannot illumine Brahman, na Chandra, neither can the moon, na Tarakam, nor can the stars, na Vidyut, neither do the flashes of lightning. Kuta ayam agnihi, definitely not the fire which we use as a diya to illumine the Lord when we do an arati. None of these can illumine Brahman. Actually, there is no need because Brahman is self-evident. Now, all this fancy poetry and Sanskrit vocabulary just means neti neti. That means the first, I am not the body, the first neti. Second, yet I am not nothing either, the second neti. The world has no existence apart from me as Atma, the consciousness. The universe is just an appearance, mithya. As said in Isha Upanishad, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Now we move to the topic of Jnana and Bhakti Yoga. Before we start, let us see what is the link between Bhakti and Jnana. As Mr. Janaki Raman just said, they are like the two wings of a bird. Bhakti is an integral part of all spiritual sadhanas. It works at the level of the heart. Bhakti is useful in the path of Jnana because our real problems are samskaras or impurities in our mind. Knowledge of Jnana is an intellectual process. If this knowledge does not become an emotional strength, even though I may know that I am Brahman, I will not be anchored in that knowledge when life throws challenges at me. Devotion or bhakti redirects our outward desires back to God so that they are no longer an obstruction in the path of jnana. Bhakti makes us integrated beings. Our actions and speech are aligned with our thoughts. This is called Arjavam. Bhakti is also a powerful means of invoking God's grace for spiritual growth. Coming to Jnana Yoga. What is Nyana Yoga? It is a discipline meant for gaining the knowledge of Brahman. It is the yoga of wisdom. It is the cultivation of discrimination between Atma and Anatma. What is the purpose of Jnana Yoga or Atmakhyana? It is for the realization of moksha purushartha. What is moksha? It is a freedom from bondage or dependence. What is the meaning of bondage? The notional misconception that I am this body-mind complex is bondage. It is ignorance called Atma, Anatma, Aviveka. Vedanta takes us from ignorance to knowledge. All of us are born ignorant. Vedanta takes us to that luminous gap between the subject and object. The next step is ours. We must intuitively grasp the truth that I am that awareness, the fourth, the Turiyam, to which the body-mind complex and the entire universe just appears and disappears. Atmakyanam gives us mukti from this bondage. Now, is this bondage real? Or is it just an illusion? Here's a story. The donkey tale. Once upon a time, there was a washerman, a dhobi, who loaded soiled clothes on a donkey and went all the way down to the bank of a river every day to wash and dry these clothes. One day, on reaching the river, he realized that he'd forgotten the harness which he was using to tie the donkey to a tree. A sheer disaster, because returning home would mean a day's labor lost. Also, leaving the donkey unleashed would mean it could just stray away. How could he lose his only SUV? A wise man walking by noticed his distress and offered this advice. He told the dhobi, just pretend to tie the donkey with all the appropriate actions, making sure that the donkey is observing you all the time. Though absurd, the desperate dhobi obeyed. He then offloaded the laundry, walked up to the river, and worked as usual. He shot frequent glances at the donkey, and strangely enough, the donkey looked back at him without moving an inch, as though it was tied. Late in the evening, the dhobi gathered the washed and dried clothes and fastened them onto the donkey's back. Eager to get back, he shouted, "Hut, let's go." To his dismay, the donkey just didn't budge. It obviously thought it was harnessed. The perplexed dhobi ran back to the wise man and explained this new problem. The wise man confidently told him that all he had to do was just pretend to unfasten the leash, going through all the motions while making sure that the donkey was observing him. After following the instructions, the dhobi mounted the donkey and yelled, "Hut, hut, hut, let's go." To his astonishment, the donkey obeyed. This story is a metaphor used to teach us the transcendental truth that we need not accomplish moksha or freedom. We are essentially mukta purushas, sat, chit, ananta brahman, the limitless consciousness principle. Bondage is just an illusion created by avidya maya. It makes us feel tied to our body-mind complex and the consequential samsara. It is this feeling of incompleteness, apurnatvam, that draws us to the first three purusharthas: artha, kama, and dharma. Artha means procurement of worldly goods for security. Kama is desire for comfort and luxury. Dharma is the building up of punya, or the adrishta bank balance. What are the types of bondage? First, raga, the desire that makes us run towards objects. This is called pravritti. For example, a shimmering shell on the seashore, which appears like silver, makes us run towards it. Remember, all objects are mithya. Next, dvesha, repulsion that makes us run away from objects. This is called nivritti. For example, being repulsed by a rope mistaken for a snake. This incessant and futile running is called samsara. What are the virtues of freedom? Acceptance of that situation which cannot be changed, the courage to change what can be changed, and the discretion to know the difference between the two. How do I get self-knowledge? Knowledge, whether para, that is material sciences, or apara, is attained by using an instrument called pramana. Apara vidya is attained by perception or inference. Perception is possible by using our 5 sense organs. Therefore, it is called paurusheya pramana or pratyaksha pramana. Now, these organs are all extroverted instruments. They are incapable of studying the subject behind the instrument. For example, the eye can neither see itself nor the seer. Since the subject, I, cannot be subject to objectification, a 6th pramana is needed. This is called Shastra pramana or Shabda pramana. Since it is extrinsic, it is called Apaurusheya pramana. The technique of using Shastra pramana or scriptural study is called Nyana Yoga. This is inquiry into Vedanta with the help of a guru. The 3 stages of Jnana Yoga are: first, Shravanam. This is the systematic and continuous listening to the scriptures or teachings for a long period of time under the guidance of a competent guru. The next, Mananam. Mananam is a resolution of all intellectual doubts till I am able to say with conviction, Aham Brahma Asmi. Third, Nidithyasanam. This is the transformation of intellectual knowledge into emotional strength, that is, assimilation of self-knowledge. What is the role of a guru? A guru plays a pivotal role in Atmakhyana. Being a Shrotriya Brahmanishta, one who can communicate this knowledge, remaining anchored to Brahma, he transmits spirituality, perhaps even without words. When the enlightened guru speaks and the qualified disciple listens, spirituality just becomes tangible. A samsara that never existed is removed, and the inner awareness that always existed is made known. This is accomplishment of the accomplished. What is Jivan Mukti? Through Shravana, Manana, and Nidithyasanam, a person becomes a Jivan Muktaha. This is a state of being enlightened while being alive, realizing that you are the absolute, yet particularized as an individual for purposes of transaction in this Vyavaharika Prapancha. Now, a quick recap. We must remember that we are an inseparable mixture of Atma and Anatma. Atmakhyana is the only path to moksha. Jnanat eva kaivalyam. Atmakhyana is possible by self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is possible by scriptural study, and scriptural study is possible only with the guidance of competent guru. It is this guru that takes us to the luminous gap between the subject and object, and then he says, Tat Tvam Asi. Through Nidithyasana, we should realize the truth, Aham Brahma Asmi. The 7 stages of our journey from Ajnana to Jnana are depicted in this story called The Princess of Kashi. Let's listen. The Princess of Kashi. Long, long ago, in an ancient kingdom, a certain queen organized a special theatrical play to be held in the palace. A pretty little 5-year-old girl was needed to play the role of the Princess of Kashi. As no girl fit the role appropriately, the queen decided to dress up her own little son, the prince, as the Princess of Kashi. As the little prince looked adorable in the costume, she summoned the court artist and requested him to paint a portrait of the child. They could not take photos in those days, you see. The artist did a perfect job and labeled it the Princess of Kashi and inscribed the date upon the canvas. Now this painting was then carefully tucked away in the basement storage room of the palace. Many years later, or 15 years later,
the prince, now a handsome and accomplished heir to the throne, while exploring the dungeons of the palace, stumbled upon the painting labeled The Princess of Kashi. He was instantly enamored and mesmerized with the beauty of the girl and instantly fell in love with her. And the prince was so lost in thought and unhappy, he was too shy to discuss his overwhelming desire for this princess. One day, a dedicated and senior minister approached the prince and convinced him that he could be trusted to solve his problem. The prince told him that he was in love with a certain princess of Kashi, whose child portrait he had seen in the storage room of the palace. The wise minister instantly remembered the painting and the drama enacted by the prince 15 years ago. He told the entire story of the play and the circumstances that led to the prince being dressed up as a princess on that very day 15 years ago. The minister told the prince, "Thou art that princess in the portrait. Tappal Tvam Asi." On realization of the truth, the prince instantly lost his desire for the princess.
Okay, I'm not sure how much of that came through, but let's proceed. How did his desire for the princess vanish? Did he fulfill his desire by marrying her? No. Did he find out that she was dead or married to somebody else? Something like an unfulfilled desire? No. Did he realize that he was just that which he sought? Yes. The realization is precisely depicted in this mantra. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman Soshnute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschita Iti. This means with self-realization or Atmakhyana, one attains a sense of fulfillment so infinite that all finite desires just resolve. As Lord Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani eva atmana tushta sthita prajnasta uchyate. This world is our princess of Kashi. Things are dead in themselves. We breathe life into them, develop raga, dvesha, and either run towards them or away from them. On realizing that this whole universe is my own creation, Mai eva sakalam jatam, Mai sarvam pratishtitam. This world, like the princess of Kashi, becomes one with me. Now let's compare the story of the prince with our own journey. The 7 steps. First, Jnana or ignorance. The prince was ignorant about the princess of Kashi. We are born with self-ignorance. Second, Adhyasa or error. The prince gave the princess an existence outside. That was his error. Then he developed raga or desire for her. Similarly, we believe that the world is real and identify with our body-mind complex. Both Ajnana and Adhyasa are intellectual problems. Third, Dukkha or sorrow of samsara. This is an emotional problem. Fourth, Guru Upadesha. In the story, it was the minister revealing the truth about the portrait to the prince. In Vedanta, the scriptural knowledge revealed as Paroksha Jnana by the Guru, Tat Tvam Asi. The 5th step is Jnana Prapti or realization. Just as the prince realized that the princess was none other than himself, in Vedanta, we realize Aham Brahma Asmi. The 4th and 5th are at the level of the intellect. Finally, the 6th and 7th are Dukkha Nivritti and Ananda Prapti. These two happen instantaneously, simultaneously, and effortlessly at the emotional level. It may take a long time to get there, yet it is worth the effort. We come to the topic of Bhakti. What is Bhakti? Love and devotion directed to a higher principle like parents, guru, the country, or God. It is a range of sadhanas based on understanding. Ishvara Jnana Bina, Ishvara Bhakti na sambhavati. As Sri Ramana Maharshi said, by constantly keeping one's attention on the source, the ego is dissolved into that source, like the salt doll in the sea. This is a story about a salt doll which journeyed thousands of miles over the land with a few of its friends until it finally came into the sea. It then walked into the sea and found that the further it walked into the sea, the more it dissolved. Before the last bit dissolved, the doll exclaimed in wonder, "Now I know what I am." The 9 forms of bhakti are, see, bhakti, like Shraddha and Ananda, is an expression of emotion. It cannot be precisely translated or expressed into words. Yet, for the purpose of teaching, this complex emotion is categorized into 3 groups. First, based on the intensity of love of God, bhakti could be manda bhakti, which is the least, madhyama, the in-between, and uttama bhakti, which is the highest. Second, sadhana-based bhakti could be karma yoga, upasana yoga, and jnana yoga. Based on the understanding of God, it could be Eka Rupa, God with form, Aneka Rupa, the universal form, and Arupa Bhakti, that is Nirguna or formless God. Let us see how Bhakti evolves. We start with Sakama Pradhana Bhakti Yoga. This is a Yoga Kshema Pradhana lifestyle, acquisition and protection of objects of desire. At this stage, God is a means of strength to work, and the consequences of our actions are accepted as God's will, prasada buddhi. The next level is Nishkama Pradhana Bhakti Yoga. This is a selfless lifestyle wherein one gradually realizes that the Yoga Kshema way of being is tiresome and often unfulfilling. One learns to transfer some of this Yoga Kshema to God and pursue activities meant for Chitta Shuddhi or purification of the mind. As Lord Krishna says, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Janaha Paryupasate Tesham Nithyabhiyuktanam Yoga Kshema Vahamyaham. Here, one offers every action to God, Ishvara Arpana Bhava, and accepts every consequence as God's gift, prasada buddhi. Third, Eka Rupa Ishvara Bhakti. Now, without undue concern for Yoga Kshema, one directs his extroverted mind inwards. This is also called Abhyasa Yoga. The fourth is Vishwarupa Ishvara Bhakti. With evolution, the need to humanize God becomes less necessary. One sees divinity in the entire creation. Chitta Vishalata develops, just as a folded bud blooms into a fragrant flower. The above 4 stages make one develop the 4 Ds of Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, namely Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam. One acquires Jnana Yogyata, or the eligibility for Jnana Yoga. Finally, Nyana Yoga. This, as we just heard, is the practice of Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana under the guidance of a competent guru who brings about a transformation of this intellectual truth, Tat Tvam Asi, into an emotional conviction and strength, Aham Brahma Asmi. Now, with this evolution, we see that all emotional problems like samsara, the raga, dvesha, etc., just resolve. The direct benefit of this bhakti yoga is Atmakhyana, Aham Brahma Asmi, Aham Purna Asmi. At the intellectual level, ignorance goes, Ajnana Nivritti. At the emotional level, the overwhelming feeling of Purnatvam resolves karma, which is the root of all samsara. To conclude, as a karta, a doer of actions, all my deeds are born out of Purnatvam. There will be no motives, no anxiety. Every action is a daksha or skill. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. As a bhokta, the receiver of consequences of action, one is emotionally immunized. FIR is at its peak, meaning the frequency and intensity of impulsive outbursts is minimal, while resilience is great. As a pramata or observer, one's perspective of life becomes that of samatvam or equipoise. Whatever the experience, mana, apamana, sukha, dukkha, etc., one remains poised, a sthita prajna. Thank you. I wish to express my gratitude to Swami Paramarthananda ji for making such cryptic scriptures meaningful to us. I consider his lectures the most prized possessions ever. He is indeed a Shrotriya Brahmanishta for us. He is Dakshina Murti incarnate. I feel immensely indebted to Dr. Hegde, who has relentlessly motivated us in this pursuit of Brahma Vidya. He has literally tugged us along with him. His patience, compassion, and tolerance is boundless. Thank you. It is our tradition to conclude with this prayer. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama. Now the session is open for questions. People can ask by unmuting or please put it in the chat box. I have one question to begin with, Dr. Anupama.
Yes, please.
While these are sadhana of bhakti and Nyana Yoga were very clearly brought out, particularly now during the pandemic time, to practice this is a very big challenge. And with all people mostly, now it's slightly opening up, but there is also a fear complex, anxiety complex, stress. So how do we really translate this into day-to-day action?
I think, well, this is my opinion. If every action that we do is like Ishvara Arpana, with that Ishvara Arpana Bhava and Prasada Buddhi, if we continue to do whatever we have to do without motives and a bit selflessly, but of course taking all the precautions, it shouldn't be so difficult at all. After all, we are meant to die, and what is more noble than dying at work? I think that's the way I feel.
Prasada and Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on this? Shravana is very clear, okay, what we hear. How to do manana and nididhyasana?
Okay. When we hear some lecture, and when we kind of recap what we have heard in the class, there may be certain aspects that may not be very clear to us. There may be certain aspects that may seem wrong to us, but we should have Shraddha in the scriptures and realize that it may be our misinterpretation, and we should somehow reorient our understanding to make it right. So maybe repeated study or repeated listening or going to people who have understood better for help, that is how we clear doubts. This subject is very cryptic, sometimes controversial and confusing, but we should persist. And I think there is a way out, putting Shraddha as a forefront, the firm conviction that the scriptures can never be wrong, and we should reorient our understanding to make it right. With that, we can go ahead. That is Mananam. And then, of course, Nididhyasanam is so abstract. I think Nididhyasanam is something that we should run those thoughts repeatedly through our minds so that it becomes a vasana, a way of life. I think that's so. I don't know. Dr. Hegde may improve on that.
To explain what is this Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Shravanam is listening to the teacher. One of the qualities that we require is, as Dr. Anupama said, is Shraddha. Shraddha means what my teacher says, what the scripture says is gospel truth. But as Janaki Ram said, the moment any knowledge is given, along with knowledge comes doubt. And if there is doubt in any of the aspects, you will not be able to consume. Supposing somebody gives me a glass of water, and then I'm about to drink, but somebody says, no, I have a feeling that is contaminated, but 1% only, 99% it is not. But even if there is a doubt, 1% doubt, I'm not going to consume that water, which means I can consume knowledge only when that knowledge is doubt-free. So even though I may have Shraddha, my doubts have to be clear. So I have to go back to the teacher, exactly like what we are doing in this question answer process. Challenge the teacher until your doubts are clear. And this is the process of Mananam, that my doubts are clear. Once I have got a doubt-free information, then the last part is, now I know that I'm not an ordinary human being. Brahma Jnanam tells you, you are not ordinary. You're not human beings with an occasional spiritual experience, but the other way around. We are spiritual beings who have forgotten who we are, and we think we are ordinary human beings. The teachers will clearly tell you, you have identified with your body mind, and that's why you think you are limited. The teacher says, you are that consciousness which is unlimited, temporarily using this body mind. Once this information becomes crystal clear, I know, but it has not made a difference to my life. I still am the same miserable person. Now goes a long, maybe 10 years plus process of meditation on what the teacher says is called Nididhyasana. The teacher has given me knowledge. The knowledge has been cleared by Mananam. Now I live with this knowledge, and this process of internalizing. Internalizing is like I have added a sweetener to my coffee. When I drink it, it's not sweet. The simple reason, I have not stirred it so that the coffee has not gone to every part of the sugar has not gone into every part. This knowledge has to go to every cell of my being, and I'm not this limited. I am a Mukta Purusha. I am free. I don't have to do anything to be free. I am already that. Once this knowledge becomes a conviction, life becomes a transformation. Mr. Janakiram?
Thank you, sir. Very clear explanation. And I ask other participants if they have any questions to ask before I ask one more. So I'll give some time for others to ask. You are also welcome to type it in the chat box.
Any questions on that mantra? Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto bhanti. You know, this is a mantra that we commonly chant during aratis. It is, if you go into the meaning, it is definitely difficult. But once you know the meaning, the knowledge itself is so transformative. So that is why one has to know, these are all not ordinary mantras. These are Upanishadic mantras from Mundaka and the Kathopanishad. That's right.
Three types of bhakti also will help Dr. Hegde clarify that low, medium, and uttama?
All right. See, bhakti has been classified as based on intensity. The intensity is three things. Now, whom do we love the most? So based on intensity, now we have to ask this question: is God the means? Is God the goal? Or is God myself? What do you mean by God is the means? I have some sickness in my body, so I ask God, please help me. I want the disease to go. So God is the service provider, and my aim, my objective is my sickness should go. I need wealth. I need all the good things in the world. When I want all the good things in the world, then God is the service provider. God is the means. So Manda Bhakti is lowest when God is the means. The next higher is God is my goal. God is my goal means, I will give you an example that we always do. I have given so many times, is when we were doing that parikrama around Mount Kailash. If you have to do a parikrama, your goal is to do the parikrama. To help you to the goal, you employ a Sherpa. The Sherpa is the one who will help you to go. Now, because your goal is so important, the means, the one who helps you to go there is also very important. When God is the means, the love for the means is until I get my goal. Once I get my goal, am I bothered about the Sherpa? I will pay him, I will tip him, I will thank him, then I will say, you go away. Now, the love for the end or for the goal is always higher than the love for the means. So by intensity 1 is the lowest for the means, higher for the goal. But in Advaita Vedanta, you discover God is none other than the consciousness that you are. Whom do we love the most? More than the means, more than the goal, all of us love ourselves the most. So if you see bhakti by intensity, you have 3 grades, depending upon whether God is the means, whether God is the goal, or God is myself. This is one classification. Bhakti can also be classified 3 based on the sadhana. When I do Karma Yoga is Ishwararpana Bhava and Prasada Bhava. So there is bhakti. Whenever I sit and meditate and do any mantras, which is upasana, there is bhakti. When I come to Jnana Yoga, before and after my class, I will make a prayer. So Jnana Yoga also involves bhakti. So based on sadhana, bhakti has been classified as Karma Yoga Rupa Bhakti, Upasana Yoga Rupa Bhakti, and Jnana Yoga Rupa Bhakti. And finally, Bhakti is classified by my own understanding of God. Is God in the form of Eka Rupa, God with form? Second is God as the world, or Aneka Rupa or Vishwarupa. And the highest form is God as Arupa, or the formless. So based on these 3 classifications, you have 9 types of bhaktis.
Thank you.
So to come face to face with consciousness, will knowledge alone help?
To come to face with consciousness. See, consciousness is certainly beyond knowledge. There is no, it is not accessible through any means, but the only way is also through Guru and Shastra. That is why it is said, without a Guru, the knowledge of consciousness will not happen. You need Guru, you need scriptural guide. Third is a deep sort of a preparation. If there are 3 things, the student is prepared and that there is the teacher, it is through knowledge that the teacher is indicating to something that cannot really be indicated. It is like this. A skill can never be taught. Like a great surgeon or a great cricketer can be, he cannot transmit the same skill to his own son. And yet there are so many people who can watch him and grasp that skill if a person is really. So what students do is the teacher can carry you up to a certain level, but the last jump or the last understanding is essentially the path of the student. And that is why, so we need all these things. And finally, the real jump that happens is when the student is able to grasp it. And so I will say it is through knowledge, but finally it is also a little intuitive when the student is able to grasp it. That is why, it may be the same teacher, the same text. Some students get it, some students never get it.
So it's like we have to take that leap. It's as if we drop knowledge.
Yes, at a certain
And
stage.
when we do that, I think, yeah.
That's true.
When we do that, I don't think it's an achievement. Something of a dropping, but it's not an achievement.
That's true. It is really a dropping of your identity with limitations, because this accomplishment is called the accomplishment of the accomplished. It is like the teacher can give you a pole and teach you the skill of using the pole vault, but finally when you reach that height, you have to skillfully let go of all your limitations. Your limitations here is all your misconceptions, your body-mind complex. So that part we have to do. The teacher can give you the pole, the teacher can train you, but then you have to do the jump and you have to let go of the pole.
Thank you very much, sir.
Of skill aspect was very clear, particularly in the context of any profession and more so in medical profession. But how do we really relate it to a field like spirituality?
I didn't get your question, Mr. Janakiram, about the field of spirituality and medicine. Is there some question relating to that?
That's right. Because you correctly said, you have an experienced surgeon or a neurospecialist like you. You can only take some student up to certain level of the skill, then it is up to the student to pick up and progress. That analogy is clear and a tangible thing. But in spirituality, like Nididhyasana and then Shravana and Manana and Nididhyasana, how do we transfer that skill? How the student captures and then has to progress?
In a way, it is very similar, sir. Both paths are all. That is why the path of spirituality, there are few things which the teacher can give you through knowledge. But there are few things that you need to imbibe by just being with the teacher. Sometimes, the students can learn a lot by, this is what is called the non-verbal communication. So sometimes living with the teacher, that is why in medicine also you have what is called a residency scheme, where it's like a Gurukula, where the student will stay in the hospital. And just like in a Gurukula, the student not only learns from the teacher, he also observes how the teacher does everything in his daily life. So it is a combination of not only what you talk, but how you live your own life. And that is a non-verbally communicated to the student, both in medical practice. If a person is the students are very keenly watching a doctor, how he talks to patients, how he interacts with them, when things go wrong, whether he gets upset or so on. So all the students are watching. So too, in a Gurukula, they are watching the Guru very closely. And so the teacher teaches by example more than by words.
Thank you very much, sir. So if there are no more questions, you would like to say anything about the further programs coming up on next Wednesday and onwards?
From our side, is it? What is the next program?
Correct. From your side, what will be the next Wednesday's topic?
See, once we have all these, then it will be the various qualifications. See, right now we have spoken about the sadhanas, and then it will be the various qualifications that the student must have. So unless students, let's say a person is very interested in going for higher studies, but the teacher will say, are you eligible? Do you have the basic qualification? So too for spirituality, there are certain qualifications which are required. And these qualifications which were mentioned in today's talk are called the 4 Ds. The student should have discrimination, dispassion, a keen desire, and a certain amount of discipline. What are these? I think this will be the next topic. The next topic will be the qualifications required for a spiritual student, because as I said, if a person is qualified, these people are the ones who are likely to get the full spiritual benefits than a person who enters without qualifications.
Very good. Thank you. With that, on behalf of all participants, I convey our appreciation for a very practical and with a lot of clarification on the subject of Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. We look forward to the next Wednesday to learn more about the qualifications. And if Aniket is there, can you please display the programs, upcoming programs from School of Ancient Wisdom?
Yes, sir.
So this is tomorrow evening on lifestyle diseases and ancient wisdom. Dr. Arvind Bharadwaj is the speaker. Then on Friday morning at 10:30, we have Bhagavad Gita by Krishnapani Kesaraju. All of you are welcome to attend. We are now covering chapter 11. Then Friday evening, 6:30 by Vani Vasudev, Saddarshana, which is 40 verses. 3 verses have been covered in the last Friday. So she will give a review and then start from the 4th verse this coming Friday. On Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, we are studying Atma Bodha by Adi Shankara. We are now in 42nd verse in Atma Bodha. So all of you are welcome to attend all these programs. So with that, I thank Dr. Anupama, our speaker, and Dr. Timma Pegde and Param Vedanta, and organizers of School of Ancient Wisdom, Aniket, Dr. Ramanan, Ravi Garad, Sajani, who is the main force behind all this movement in giving us an impetus to our spiritual learning during this time through webinars. So with that, it's a good evening, and please do Shravana, Manana, and Nididasana and what we heard today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.